Hello and welcome to Ignite Elim Church. I'm really glad to be able to invite you to our November campaign. It's a preaching series around the book title Atomic Habits. This is the book. It's by a guy called James Clear, and it essentially talks about how we can change our habits from removing unhealthy habits and then implanting some helpful habits into our lives. And so I'd like to invite you to get joined in for the month of November, getting into all of our church gatherings and all of our stuff midweek so that we can learn together how to change our lives in a practical way. We're even going to have some workshops. Dr. Laura will be doing a few workshops and stuff around mental health, and I might do some stuff around spirituality and maybe leadership and stuff and leading our own lives. Let me read a quick quote for you from this book. This is brilliant. I love this. It's talking about identity and how our identity shapes our habits. Okay, this is what he says. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument. The goal is to become a musician. And may I add, the goal is not to turn up to church every week. The goal is to become a good Christian. I really hope that you can block out your diary for the month of November every Sunday morning, put it as your top priority. I'm going to church, I'm going to grow, I'm going to turn into a better Christian, a more rounded person by putting some healthy habits into my life and removing some unhealthy ones from my life. I hope to see you soon. God bless you. Glory, 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 glory. Well, wasn't that nice? I enjoyed that time of worship. How are we all feeling, all right? Yeah, we all good? All right, William's struggling, is he? Bless him. That's cool. Sure be right. Lovely. Well, I'm so glad you're all here. I'm so glad that some of you have Bibles with you as well. I can see some of you guys with Bibles. That's good news. We're going to be carrying on our Atomic Habits campaign behind me. I've put a big bright thing up on the screen, which means that I'm no longer bright on the camera, but that's all right. Folks watching later on, if you do, then God bless you for sticking with me, even though I don't look very bright. I don't stand out very much. Okay. Glory. I've put that thing up on the screen behind me. That's our True Freedom Recovery program that we're running at the moment. You'll see little posters and stuff everywhere. It's great. It's just it's basically like a 12-step program type thing, which essentially helps us to get free from addiction, not just drugs and stuff, all different types of addiction. And so we have a True Freedom group, a community down at Bootham already. They've started their course last week, and I'm currently looking for up to 5 people to start the same course here at Birchwood as well. So if you are someone who struggles with addiction, or if you know someone who struggles with addiction and you'd like to be part of this, then by all means come and give me a shout. Okay, today we are talking about why do we have habits? Why do we have habits? Anyone know why we have habits? Anyone even know what a habit is? Did Adrian explain last week what a habit is, or did he miss that bit out? Okay, well, snitch. He won't even hear you. But a habit basically is something that we do from day to day, right? And it's something that we have become accustomed to. I like to describe it as my default place that I go to when something goes wrong or right or whatever else. Do you know what I mean? So an idea of this is so. Can I be really honest? Can I be really, really honest? Is that right? Hey, my name's Darren. I had a really traumatized upbringing. Lots of different things. I won't go into details. I don't want to trigger you guys with my own story. But let's just put it this way. It was not good. It was very rubbish. It was the sort of childhood that no one wants. And some people would be surprised that I have survived this long. Okay, to be fair, actually, there have been lots of times when I've thought about not surviving, and sometimes actually when I am immensely triggered by the things that go on in the world around me. By triggered, what I mean is is that essentially, say for example, someone might say something. Here's an example. Okay, here's an example. A friend recently was telling me about a young person, a child, that they had brought a special gift for, right? And this gift was just for that child, because the child doesn't have very much, and so the child is also going through a childhood of neglect, and maybe some small abuses that maybe aren't very nice and stuff. Maybe gets hit or something like that. I don't know, but there's lots of things that can happen in their childhood that are abusive. Maybe gets told things about them that isn't true, or gets told negative things. But anyway, whatever it was, this young person had been given a gift by my friend. And then my friend says, I was looking on social media, and I noticed that the child's family member, their second cousin twice removed, was wearing the gift that I'd bought just for that child. The one thing in this world that they owned, and that was theirs, had been taken from them and given to another family member, probably as a gift, by their parents. Now, bless that child, right? Bless that child. They can't have anything. Whatever they have gets taken away, and whatever friends and loved ones give to them, that gets taken away. Now, that's one of the things that would happen in my childhood, and I remember once I got I think I was given what's it called? A BMX. I got given a BMX by my social workers when I was a child, and within a few weeks of getting it, it had been sold to buy alcohol and some substances that I don't want to mention from the stage, by my parents or parent. And so when I heard the story of this young person having this thing done to them, what happened inside me was some memories and some feelings suddenly rose up inside me about my own story. Yeah? And so the story that I'd heard that day triggered those emotions in me. Yeah? So that's what I mean by getting triggered. Okay? Yeah? So I was feeling mad triggered, and so I went to my default place. What's my default place? In all honesty, when I was growing up, I learnt very young that if I was aggressive, then people would be scared of me, and they'd leave me alone. They'd do what I want. They'd stay out of my way, right? So I would, if ever I felt defensive or threatened or anything like that, if I felt that way, then I would automatically lash out at everyone around me. Okay. I might have a paddy or a tantrum, but I was probably going to be a bit worse than that. It got to the point where that aggression, my new default position in life, became so strong in me and so constant in me that when I was walking down the street to the shop, for example, people would cross the road when they saw me, just in case I was aggressive towards them, i.e. I was a bit of a brute. Now, on the day that my friend was telling me about this young person who had been mistreated, and I was triggered, I then became, I didn't know why at the time, but I started becoming aggressive and snappy to my wife and to my children and to anyone that I saw that day. To which at one point, one person said, "Darren, are you feeling okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm feeling great, thanks. What's it got to do with you?" Do you know what I mean? But my point here is that I was triggered, and then I went to a default place. You hear what I'm saying? And that default place is what we would call our habit. Yeah? So, sometimes when I feel triggered, I feel like the triggering isn't necessarily a threat, and I don't feel threatened. Instead, I just feel really emotionally ugh. When you just I feel like a little bit sick, I feel a bit nauseous, I feel a bit oh man, I just feel almost everyone's going to leave me, everyone hates me because I eat worms, And then, do you know my default position when I feel like that? Do you want to know what my default position is for that? A cheeky can of beer. It doesn't seem like something that's necessarily bad, and to the greatest degree, the Bible itself says, hey, Timothy, if you've got a jippy tummy, i.e. you're feeling a bit anxious today because you get a jippy tummy when you feel anxious, have a glass of wine. It's good for you, right? So the Bible says that. So I'm like, chicky beer won't hurt. The problem is, though, if I'm going through a week of having those feelings, then I end up having a beer every day, right? Yeah? And then maybe I'll get used to having a beer every day, so I'll keep on having a beer every day. And then before you know it, I've been having a beer every day for the next however many years. And then I'm no longer someone who's traumatized and has a cheeky beer when I feel a little bit triggered. I'm now what we call an alcoholic. Yeah? I'm just describing to you what my childhood was like. So I started drinking and learning that drink was an answer to one of my issues when I was about 11 years old. Okay? Young, isn't it? I used to find my granddad's stash. He had to stash it away in a secret place, but I knew where it was. And I'd go in there and I'd take a can of Carling whenever I fancied a can of Carling. And he never really knew because I only took a little bit every now and again. Laura's mum and dad used to keep spirits in a Welsh dresser. And so when she fancied getting rid of that feeling on the inside, she'd go in and she'd have a little tipple. Until one day she had a few too many tipples and then came out on the estate after having a few too many tipples and then met me and she got pregnant. I'm kidding, obviously, but you know what I mean? So, but the point here is that we find these things and we find, so I remember very young, I must have been 12 years old the first time I stole alcohol from a shop. And then when I was 13, I got caught stealing alcohol from the shop. I thought I was well clever. I had a massive Man United coat, and I'd managed to sneak a bottle of really strong stuff up my arm. And so you couldn't see it, but she knew. The shop, well, probably because of what I looked like, in all honesty, she just knew that I'd been robbing something because I hadn't bought nothing. I'd gone in there, gone straight to the alcohol section, and then walked back out again. She just knew. So she grabbed me. As she grabbed me by that arm. If she grabbed me by the other arm, she'd never found it, but she grabbed me by that arm, and suddenly then I've got the police coming round because Darren's been caught stealing high-value alcohol from the shop. I know. And this is like when I'm 12, 13, 14 years old. And that became a lifestyle for me, right? But the truth is that it didn't need to. And actually, if I was maybe a little bit more enlightened, or if I was given the tools and understanding to understand why I had these habits and why I felt I needed to have a drink or whatever else I would shove up my nose or in and around my gums, for those of you guys who know what I'm on about, if I knew why I did that and how I could stop, then maybe life wouldn't have gone the way that it did. Yeah? You understand? Cool. Okay, let me read a little bit of this book to you then. So this is Atomic Habits. This quote for you is on page 45. Forgive me whilst I just make sure I find the right quote. Here we go. Are you ready for this? Whenever you face a problem repeatedly, your brain begins to automate the process of solving said problem. Your habits are just a series of automatic solutions that solve the problems and stresses you face regularly. As behavioural scientist Jason Herrera, go on me with that name, writes, habits are simply reliable solutions to reoccurring problems in our environment. Yeah? And that problem may be internal, it may be external, but our habits are essentially our way of solving reoccurring issues that come up in life. Okay? That's why we get habits. Now, knowing that, let me ask you a question. Is it possible for you to re-evaluate your problem-solving technique for said continuous issue that comes up in life? Is that possible? Yes. So here's an example. This might not be the best example, but whilst I was at Bible college, well, just before Bible college actually, when I first became a Christian, I stopped drinking altogether. I just didn't really fancy a drink. It was like a miracle that happened to me. It was lovely. And God did a wonderful work in me. And I stopped drinking until I went to Bible college, maybe 18 months later on. And during that time, instead of having a beer when I felt triggered on the inside, I might say get a packet of noodles or a cheeky, lasagna from the co-op. Yeah? Because, as well as alcohol being a friend of mine when I'm feeling a little bit duff, I have another friend. His name is food. Yeah. You thought I was going to say Jesus then, didn't you? Jesus is my friend too. And ultimately that's who I should be going to, and that's where I should be headed. But in all honesty, sometimes it's quite difficult to think Jesus when you're triggered, angry, frustrated, got loads and loads of emotions going on inside of you and you don't know what to do with them. Suddenly you find yourself in a place where I just need a quick fix, and prayer today isn't going to work for me because I'm so maybe angry. Has anyone tried praying when they're angry before? Yeah, you've tried that. How did it go for you, Jean? Your silence speaks volumes. Yeah. 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 Yeah, honestly, worship, great shout for when I feel that thing happening inside of me. Do you want me to know how one of the ways I know I'm being triggered? Because, one of the things we have to realise if we want to get away from those habits that we do when triggered, first of all, one of the things we need to do is know that we're being triggered. Okay, so that day that I talk about the young person who had the gift taken away from them, that day I had no idea that I'd been triggered until about 2 days later, when I was still being a right muppet, and then Laura said to me, "Darren, what's going on?" And I said, "Let me think about it." And I thought about it, and I thought, oh, you know what? It was that story. It was that little person, Her story hurt my heart, and it triggered me, and it made me realise that, and then I suddenly realised what had happened, but I didn't know I'd been triggered. But there are times when I know I'm being triggered. So I got an email recently from someone who is a little bit maybe unwittingly and unknowingly maybe aggressive in the way that they speak, and this email felt quite like towards me, right? And suddenly I noticed that my whole body got really hot, and my face felt warm, actually felt warm to touch, and I looked and my skin was going a little bit red. Luckily, I'm married to a psychologist who said, "Darren," this is a few years ago, "Darren, when people enter fight or flight mode, they essentially, their whole body gets flush, and they go red in the face, and they feel really hot, and they're even hot to touch. That means you've been triggered to either fight or flight, run or fight." and so on this day, I think I was literally sat just over there. I got this email, and then my whole body starts setting on fire. And I'm like. And I just took note. I'm feeling really threatened right now. I'm really triggered. So what I did was I rang Laura, and I got on the phone. "Babe, I just want to let you know that I'm sat at work and my whole body's on fire. I feel really threatened. I feel really triggered. And I thought instead of popping round to the Black Swan for a cheeky beer, I'd give you a call." And she said, "Well done." "Well done, Darren. You've done a good thing." And we just had a conversation about the thing that I felt threatened by. And then when I read the email out to her, she says, "Oh, that doesn't seem very threatening to me." Yeah? And then I was like, "Oh, okay. In that case, maybe it's just that person's persona or something that made me feel do you know what I mean? But the point is this, that if I know the things that trigger me, and if I know when I'm being triggered and when I'm being when my body is telling me that I need something to bring me down off of this hype right now, if I know when that's happening, then I have a choice to make, don't I? I have a choice to make. Do I head round to the Black Swan and go and sit with a load of ruffians? By the way, they're really chill round there. and I really like the guys at the Black Swan. They're friends. They're friends. They are friends. And I'm more than happy to go around there and have a pint of Guinness. You know, I could do that, or I could have a conversation with the wife. So the other night, we're laying in bed, and Laura tells me about, something that's really making her feel that way on the inside. She feels sad, but weirdly happy at the same time. And she feels concerned, but relieved. And you hear what I'm saying? She feels all these contradicting emotions going on inside of her about this thing. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit shy. I know, I'm quite forward coming on the stage. When you put this microphone in front of me, I speak quite well. But in all honesty, when it comes to praying with my wife at bedtime, I'm rubbish at it. I'll pray for her for 3 hours during the day, every day. Yeah, that's easy, I can do that. But sitting next to her and opening up my heart to God in front of someone who knows me that well, and she knows when I'm being fake, and then God knows when I'm being fake, and then the two of them together I feel like their eyes are looking at me when I'm praying. Do you know what I mean? And so I've really struggled with that. But at that moment, because Laura needed comfort and she needed God, she might not have thought, I'm going to pray right now. Because like Jean said, sometimes when your mind's not quite there, you feel distracted by all these thoughts, and so it's really hard to pray. However, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And so I sat there and I just prayed my normal Darren style without thinking about God looking at me and Laura looking at me and everyone's eyes just telling me how fake I am. Anyway, I'm not fake. I try my hardest not to be. I hope to be a person of integrity. But in that moment, my prayer was able to soothe my wife in that moment that she was going through. You hear what I'm saying? Each of us, once we know the truth, and the truth is that your habits are the solutions, the ongoing solutions to ongoing problems that we face in life. Once we know that that's the case, and once we know how we're being triggered and when we're being triggered, it's at that point then when we have to start making choices. Do I go back to the habit that isn't good for me? Or do I enter into the habit that is good for me? Right? Yeah? Because once you know, then suddenly you're held accountable to that knowledge, right? And you yourself will know that once I know how my body works and how my mind works, I'm not sure I can really get away from that. I can try and play dumb, but I know that we're not thick in here, right? We're clever, right? Yeah? You guys are all clever folks. I can see your brains sitting there going, oh no, now I know the truth. I'm going to be held accountable for the truth. I can see your minds working it out, going, oh no, I'm going to have to change my life right now. Right? It's true, isn't it? So how do we put some of that stuff into action? How do we go from the knowledge of the truth to then putting some things into action so that we can go past these old habits and maybe start some new habits? Because not all habits are bad habits. Some habits are good habits. It's good news, isn't it? Yeah. I've got loads of good news today. Oh, loads of it. Come on. Let me read a little thing on my in my notes, because I did actually write some notes. I know you know I'm not that good at notes, but sometimes I am good at them. Hang on. Oh, you know what? I lost it. It's okay. Don't worry. Oh, I've got it. Let me just make sure I'm going in the right direction. Okay. So, let me tell you one more thing from this book. And then we're going to put some stuff into action. Let me just double check that again. You know when you look at something, you go, yeah, I got it. And then you go, no, I haven't. Okay. The book is great. He's talking about identity at one point. And he turns around, he says, when it comes to your habits, it's a bit like a political election. Have you guys heard me say this before? No? So you know when it's time to go and vote, you're going to vote for Corbyn or Boris, and then, you've all got our views on all that sort of stuff. But But Mr. Corbyn doesn't need to win 100% of the votes to win an election, does he? No? He needs maybe 40% of the votes to win. That 40% of the votes will be a definite win, wouldn't it, in this country? But he needs a majority of the votes. He needs the bigger majority of the votes. If you get over 50%, then you definitely won the election, haven't you, right? But he doesn't need 100% of the votes. And so what James Clear says is this. He says, when choosing to do this habit instead of this habit, next time you feel those emotions rising up inside, and next time you feel those triggers happening, instead, when coming to choose which sort of default you're going to slip back into, or which habit you're going to slip into, he says this. He says, you don't need to necessarily get it right every single time. And so you shouldn't beat yourself up. In fact, if you just manage to make the right decision, say 60% of the time, then eventually your life will change and you'll start seeing the benefit of it. Right? In fact, even this week, if you were to stop doing one thing 60% of the time and choose a healthier option instead, if you were to do that even this week, I'm sure your life would change almost overnight, wouldn't it? If we're being honest with ourselves. And so he says, don't worry if you accidentally slip into the old every now and again. And I often say this to people who are trying to quit smoking, right? If you're trying to quit smoking and then you know, you're really stressed on Monday, so you go out and you buy yourself a packet. Nowadays they don't sell packets of 10, do they? Only sell packets of 20. Yeah, so you have to go and buy 20 cigarettes, right? So you go to the shop, you buy 20 cigarettes, and then suddenly you've smoked one, and you ring your pastor crying. This happens, by the way. Pastor, I've just had a cigarette, right? I can't believe it. I've failed. And I'm like, no, you had one cigarette. Why don't you chuck the other 19 away and you've still quit, right? Because even though we make a small mistake, it doesn't mean that we have to keep on continuing with the small mistake. We can go back to quitting. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because one small loss isn't a complete loss. And sometimes when we're trying to stop doing one thing and move into a new thing, when we fail a little bit, oftentimes we go, never mind, that's it, we're going clubbing. We're going to get mangled and mashed up, and that's it, I failed, you know, after drinking like half a beer or something, you know, and there's just no need for it. And so what James is trying to say is changing your habits is a bit like a political election in that you don't need every single thing to go right. You just need to be heading in the right direction and try to change that habit the majority of the time. You understand? We good for that? Yeah? Yes, we're good for that. Okay, so what can we put in place in order to try and make this stick? Well, the good news is Mr. Clear also gives us some clear guidelines as to how we can make this an actual thing, how we can make this happen. So one of the things he says is that essentially, what's he say? He says that we can enter into a space where, let me get my head right, I'm a bit distracted. You guys all right? Okay. Cool. Are we all still in the room? We're all still good? Yeah? Lovely. Cool. I need to get back in the room as well. James Clear says this. He says, instead of thinking, I'm going to do this new habit consistently from now on, and then I want immediate results, he says, try not to think immediate. Try to think like looking at something and evaluating it after a period of time. So, for example, do you guys have Facebook? Some of you guys have Facebook. I know you have Facebook because I've seen you on Facebook. Some of you guys don't have Facebook. I have Facebook. And my Facebook, they have this thing called an algorithm, okay? An algorithm is essentially Facebook and other sites, they sort of work out what you're interested in by what you spend the most time looking at, okay? So, if you click on cats a lot, then more cats will start coming up on your Facebook. Yeah, you understand? Yeah? That's an algorithm. That's how an algorithm works. So, on my Facebook, I get weightlifting. Loads and loads of weightlifting. Loads of lads lifting heavy weights because that's what I'm into at the moment. I'm not sure if you can tell, by the way. You can, thanks, mate. And so I get loads and loads of people coming up doing weights. And then what happens on Facebook at the moment is, every now and again, I'll see Lincoln men. We want 6 men to do a 6-week course. And during that 6-week course, your body will change and it will be proven. You'll be able to see the change in 6 weeks, right? Men only, it says. And then lads like me are like, yeah, men only gym, lads. But isn't it funny that he doesn't say, this fella, he doesn't say, give us 1 week to change your body shape. He doesn't say that, does he? He doesn't say, come to the gym this week, we're going to give you a magic pill, and then next week you'll have the body that you want. Right? That's not what he says, is it? I get those. You get those. Is it? Ah, fair enough. There you go. What's it called? Keto dummy. Okay, keto gummy. Oh, a jelly baby. Okay. I've got friends actually who have been taking pills that the doctor give them, and then they lose loads of weight real quick. But the truth is that people who want to build muscle, which is what I'm obviously looking at on the face box, people who want to build muscle, you don't build muscle in a week. You certainly don't build muscle in a day. Muscle is built over time. And so what this guy is doing is he's putting an advert up saying in 6 weeks, we will evaluate your progress and you'll be able to see the difference, right? Get this. Beginning of the year, I was in a place at the gym where I was like, I just can't bother to go anymore, just not seeing the difference. And so what I thought I'd do is, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep on paying my 35 quid a month. I'm just going to change the way that I lift weights. And I had a thing in mind. I had a body shape in mind. I had what I wanted to look like in mind. And so I changed the way that I started doing my weights. I changed the way that I was eating. And then I started hitting it. Now, 6 months on, my body is the body that I wanted 6 months ago. And I can see the difference. Now, if I look too soon at my body, say after a week of trying to lift weights, I'm going to look at myself and I'm going to go, this doesn't work, I'm quitting, right? And that's what we do with our new habits. We often try something and we do it for a week or 2 weeks, and then when we still feel that thing on the inside, or when Jimmy hasn't changed the way that he treats me, or when I'm still getting angry at work, or whatever else it is, where I still haven't changed after 2 weeks, I then go, you know what, this fella's wrong. I think that book stuff, I'm moving away from that. Or you know what, this one just here, that Bible, it seems interesting to read, but my life's not changing. And so I'm just going to give up reading it, you know. And so what James Clear says today is, hey, and what I'm saying to you today is, hey, let's set a time frame for us to try a new habit out. And I don't know what that habit might be for your life, and maybe that's what we can think about and we can contemplate for a moment. But there's bound to be something in your life, because you're here today, that needs a little change. And what I'm saying is, I think it'll be a really good shout to put a time frame on it and give it a go. For example, this is 12 weeks. This True Freedom Recovery course is 12 weeks, right? Why don't you give 12 weeks to trying to get free from addiction? Maybe like Barbara and these guys down here, you're doing the Alpha course. That's a 10-week course. That's 10 weeks really examining Jesus and faith. And at the end of that 10 weeks, hopefully you come up with an idea as to what you really believe, right? But it's 10 weeks. Maybe today, you've got a mobile phone like mine, and you can go on what is called the Bible app. I'm on the Bible app. And just recently I started doing these little Bible reading plans. It's 7 days here and 7 days there and 2 days there or 5 days there. And it's a lot easier to... There's a time frame in which I will have completed this and I can see the results at the end. You understand what I'm saying? And so sometimes we need a time frame. For me, my body taking shape and looking like the body that I wanted took 6 months. For someone else, apparently this fellow on Facebook, he reckons he can do it in 6 weeks. I'm not too sure, because I'm a little bit lazy. Maybe today it could be 12 weeks to freedom from addiction. Maybe today it could be 10 weeks to freedom from sin. Maybe it could be, you know what? I'm going to spend, I don't know, 2 months just digging deeper into one theme in this lovely book that we call the Bible. Or, you know what? This week I'm actually going to start and finish a book and see how it changes my life. But the point is, things are always more difficult when we just say, at some point, I'll get round to it. At some point, I might do it. And then this is going to be my new habit forever. And I'm never going to come back and evaluate the difference it's made in my life. Because if you don't evaluate the difference it's made, if you don't evaluate what you're doing in your life, if you don't take stock of your life, then you'll never see the benefits to doing these things that you're doing. Whether it's turning up to church every Sunday, whether it's reading a book, whether it's reading the Bible, whether it's doing a course at the gym, whether it's doing a true freedom course or whatever it is, an alpha course. If you don't take stock and evaluate the change and give it a time frame, then I'm afraid I don't think that change is all that easy. But when you do those things, change becomes easier. Yes. At the same time, as I was laying next to the wife the other night in bed, and she was telling me her feelings, and I decided to pray for her. We'd already discussed some things that she could put in place in work, some good boundaries, some good things, you know. We'd already, they do that 24/7. What she needed was comfort and maybe a miracle. And so today, maybe today, Jesus, I'm going to put the effort in. At the same time, though, I could really do with a miracle. Because we believe in miracles, don't we? Amen? Let's stand, and we're going to pray. Before you head off today, I'd love for you to sign up to a course. I'd love for you to ask for a book to read. I've got lots and lots of books. I can lend you a book to read if you'd like to maybe learn more about your Bible, or if you'd like to learn more about yourself, or do some psychology stuff, or do some just heart stuff, some heart. You know, you might just need your heart to be broken, to be remade and remended. You know, whatever it is that you feel that you could do with, just come and see me, and I can sort you out. But I think that today we need to put some stuff into place in a practical way and actually do it, and then set a time frame as to when we're going to come back and look at that. Are we up for that? In the meantime, let's pray for a miracle. Jesus, today I'm really aware that for a lot of people in this building, they have tried really, really hard. They've tried really, really hard at change. They've tried lots of different organisations, lots of doctors, lots of new faddy pills and all sorts of funky stuff. They've tried everything. A bit like that woman in Mark chapter 5 who'd gone to all the different doctors, just spent all the money she had, and still nothing had changed. The truth is that what she needed was you, Jesus. And what we need today is you, Jesus. So God, as we put our hands on our heart, Lord, we ask, would you do a miracle right here in our hearts? Would you do a miracle right now? We're willing to put in a shift. We're willing to try hard. But we've already tried so much. And today we've come to the point where we just need a miracle. So will you do that in our lives today, Jesus? Amen.